No, 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 you did not fail, Dawn. No, I refuse.
Have you ever tried to stretch every penny only to find yourself constantly falling short? Have you ever stood in front of a pile of bills, wondering if this is the life you're meant to lead, trapped by your paycheck? Has there ever been a moment when a thought crossed your mind? What if I could take the money that no one else wants? I'm Bridget, an ordinary middle-aged woman who once followed all the rules. But when fate cornered me, I chose the craziest, most secretive path. I recruited Nina, a single mother working at the bank, and Jackie, a vibrant, bold woman with health issues. Together, we formed a small team and began meticulously planning our heist. Every step was taken with care, and trust between us became our only support. Despite the tension, the thrill made me feel truly alive, like I was finally in control of my destiny. We needed a signal, something subtle, yet instantly conveying, this is the moment. So, we picked a simple but discreet gesture.
I don't know, like this.
Became the most fragile, yet strongest link between us. The next day, I hid a custom-made new lock behind my waist. It was one I'd carefully chosen. Weight, size, material, all considered. To get past the metal detector smoothly, I tucked it behind my belt buckle, just as I expected. The guards never suspected me, a middle-aged housewife, could have any ulterior motives. At lunch, I sat in the corner of the staff break room and casually touched my eyebrow. Nina responded with the same gesture, sharp, decisive. But Jackie? She just wrinkled her nose and shook her head, like a child who suddenly had second thoughts. We met in the bathroom, all three of us squeezed into a small stall.
I had a bad feeling.
And I tried to suppress the anger bubbling up inside me. Nina was nervous too, but we all knew that if we backed out now, everything we'd prepared for would have been for nothing. We forced her to make a choice, and Nina even stormed out of the bathroom in frustration. A few hours later, we had to admit that her bad feeling might actually have been spot on. Glover suddenly announced there would be a full random security check today. The next day, everything clicked into place as smoothly as if we'd tuned the channel to the right frequency. The three of us exchanged signals. No words, no eye contact, just everything understood. That was the day it all began. I made the first move. During my routine cleaning, I pretended to wipe down the cold cash boxes, but in reality, I had my eyes on the one that wasn't locked. I carefully positioned myself between the camera and the box, took off the lock, and replaced it with the one I'd brought. My heart raced, but my face remained neutral, just like any other chore I'd do at home. On my way out, I ran into Jackie. As we brushed past each other, I subtly revealed the box number where I'd switched the lock and mentioned the one I'd replaced. Next, it was Jackie's turn. She was in charge of pushing the cash cart, moving it from the warehouse hallway all the way to the destruction room. As she reached the elevator, she did her usual silly little dance with her headphones on, like she was amusing herself. But in that moment, she blocked the camera with her body, unlocked the fake lock with one hand, and slipped a stack of bills into the cleaning trash bin behind her. She then pushed the cart to the destruction room. I tossed both into the trash can in the employee restroom, where Nina would pick them up. Where Nina was waiting, Nina replaced the lock with the original, flawless process. As I made my rounds, I cleaned the trash bin as if it were just part of the job, taking the money out and hiding it in my cleaning bag. Finally, the three of us met in the farthest stall of the women's restroom. At that moment, I had this strange feeling, like we were performing in an absurd yet thrilling comedy. We divided the spoils as if we were sharing a cake fresh out of the oven, each of us grabbing a piece, hot to the touch, but so intoxicatingly sweet. After work, Nina and I breezed through security. Suddenly, Glover appeared out of nowhere at the end of the hallway, like a shadow. My heart tightened, thinking it was all over, but he wasn't there to catch anyone. He came to find me, saying I had misplaced my employee access card. After the mission was completed, the three of us went to my place. It was our first time, really, in the physical world, counting the money that was truly ours. The bills were spread out on the bed like presents on Christmas morning. We laughed as we counted, tossing the money onto each other like we were out of our minds. That feeling was far more exhilarating than any bank deposit slip could ever be, but that excitement didn't last long. Tom came back. He stood at the door, his expression like he'd just been burned. He didn't approve, but he couldn't come up with a better solution either. Plus, my plan had worked. For the next few months, we stuck to the plan. Every penny entered our lives cleanly, without a trace. 6 months later, the 5 of us celebrated in a high-end restaurant. That meal was our ritual to say goodbye to the past and step into the world of freedom. The bills were all paid off and life had returned to normal. All right, but on one condition, we made a pact with each other. No big purchases that would raise suspicion. Once we've saved enough for real security, we'll move to a place where no one knows how much we should have. I didn't like that idea at first. I never wanted to run. I wanted to win. But I also understood that without Nina, I wouldn't be able to accomplish anything. So, I agreed.
How much?
62,000.
I admit that ring was indeed too expensive, but I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand the fact that the money we stole was only hidden behind walls or locked away in a bank account like some shameful secret. So, I bought it. Perfect, expensive, was my symbol of reclaiming dignity. Of course, I knew it went against our low-profile rule. So, I covered up. That day, she suddenly appeared in the bathroom.
It's nothing. That's all.
She asked in a low voice, her eyes sharp like ice. Without hesitation, she snatched the ring off my finger, walked over to the toilet, and with a plop, dropped it in and flushed. A sharp pain pierced my heart. I almost wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I couldn't expose us, and I certainly couldn't show weakness.
She was right, but our symbiotic system. A few days later, we met again in the bathroom. She paced back and forth in the cramped space, fiddling with a set of keys, clearly anxious. The moment I burst in, I tossed the key pouch to her, but she didn't catch it properly. I couldn't go back downstairs to get another key from Jackie. That would be too dangerous. We couldn't let any unusual movement come under Glover's watch. I didn't even have Jackie's number. Too many uncertainties, too much out of control. So I stayed in the bathroom and called Tang on my phone. Nina had no choice but to return to her post alone. Otherwise, her absence would make things even worse. As for Tang, he had to find Bob and get him to figure out how to reach Jackie. But what we didn't expect was that Bob got caught by the boss for making that call, and he ended up getting fired. By the time Tang finally came back and told me Jackie will figure something out, I was almost at my breaking point. Glover was pacing outside the door, and I knew he was starting to suspect me. I had no choice but to rely on my acting skills to get out of it. As soon as he stepped in, I started screaming hysterically
In such a way as to keep everything in the facility.
My shrill screams were loud enough, wild enough, and Bridget enough to make him recoil in fear, so much so that he didn't even process what was happening. Meanwhile, Jackie had a sudden idea at the elevator. She wrapped the spare key in chewed-up bubble gum and pretended to angrily throw it into the elevator. The 2 unlucky guys who got hit by it thought she had lost her mind. Who would have guessed that the gooey mess stuck to the elevator wall and conveniently landed on my floor? I grabbed the key, and the only thought in my head was, we are so smart, but the situation still wasn't over. Nina tried to open the cart, only to realize she had the wrong key. Barry walked over to help, but the lock still wouldn't budge. My time was running out, so I quietly approached, and as Barry got distracted, tossed the right key to Nina. She caught it, unlocked it, and sweetly smiled at Barry, as if it was just a little jammed. But Barry wasn't a fool. He noticed the actual key hadn't been touched at all. Barry, the seemingly clueless maintenance guy, was waiting for Nina in the parking lot. He told her he knew what had happened, but he didn't expose us. Instead, he casually said,
Tom, it's over.
That night, she put on a neat outfit, sprayed a hint of perfume, and went to visit Barry.
I used to think I could control how things went, that I could make them unfold exactly as I wanted, until I met Barry, the guy who was so morally upright. It was almost annoying. The next day, I cornered him in the bathroom, unable to hold
What
back.
the hell is the matter with you? That is a fantastic woman.
Me and a beautiful woman are right in front of you, and you say no? A few minutes later, I returned to Nina and Jackie, patted my clothes, and laughed as I announced, Barry agreed, he'll join us, but he doesn't want to treat the date like a transaction.
He says you're worth more than that.
What I didn't say was that for some reason, I was a little moved by him. 3 years later, I hosted a party at home. Everything was perfect that night. until I noticed a stranger mingling in the crowd. But Tang told me he had found a new job and Nina showed off her engagement ring, so I quickly forgot about the strange man. The next day, I saw Glover at the bank with the same man, giving him a tour. They were discussing funding routes, even using the cash truck Jackie was supposed to be driving as an example. A chill ran down my spine. I immediately called Nina and Jackie to meet me in the bathroom. I told them I had a bad feeling, and we all agreed. Stay calm, keep observing, and don't make any moves. But we didn't expect that the stranger was a Federal Reserve auditor, Mandelbrot. He started questioning Glover in the office, suspecting that someone was stealing money. But Glover, that proud and arrogant man, refused to admit there were flaws in the bank system. He stubbornly kicked Mandelbrot out, saying, "Bring me proof if you want to talk." Mandelbrot wasn't giving up. He went around asking our neighbors near my house for information. Tang recognized him and rushed back home, nearly begging me, "We should turn ourselves in, get a good lawyer, or it's over." But I refused. It wasn't that I feared prison. It was because if we turned ourselves in, Nina's child would grow up without a mother. I couldn't do that. Police finally gathered together, closed the doors, and discussed our next move. I told them that without evidence, we couldn't make any rash decisions. As long as we kept living normally and didn't slip up, everything could still be controlled. But then, Bob suddenly spoke up. I might have taken this a bit too seriously. I really started day trading. He said the amounts he was trading had already been reported to the IRS. I glared at him, feeling like I could strangle him. He was practically handing the investigators an invitation. Nina started to lose her temper too, saying that the money we had hidden was evidence in itself. In the end, we made a decision. We had to destroy all the cash. My heart was bleeding in that moment, but I still agreed. Before we left, the story had come full circle, back to where it all began. Jackie and Bob, in the old RV filled with cash, tried to make a run for it, only to be caught as soon as they pulled out of the garage. Nina, burning money in her backyard, was caught by the police. Barry, just as he shoved money into the car trunk, was intercepted. Tang, he was tearing up bills by the toilet, too late to flush them away. And as for me, I managed to escape in my car. But what I didn't know was that Mandelbrot had quietly followed me.